Just as December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor defined a generation, September 11th, 2001 has indelibly shaped who we are, how we live our daily lives, and what we believe in. People across the nation, some thousands of miles from the attacks, watched in horror, and yet we all felt connected. From coast to coast, Americans came together and rallied behind their fellow citizens and proclaimed in one voice, "We will not be beaten." And today, almost 1,000 miles from here, New York is rebuilding. Pride, courage, and valor. These are but a few of the qualities that shone through the smoke and the ash, the pain and the tears. 343 members of the New York City Fire Department, 23 officers of the NYPD, 37 officers from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. These are the official numbers. They don't include those who weren't dispatched, who went on their own free will, who might have already been working in the buildings or came from nearby to assist their citizens in need. Honoring all our heroes is why we have gathered here today, 10 years after they were taken from us. It's why we worked for 2 years to bring a simple piece of steel being stored in an aircraft hangar halfway across our country to our city. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, during the cleanup efforts at Ground Zero, enlisted the help of historians and other experts to set aside important or unique artifacts for possible use in the 9/11 Memorial Museum. These artifacts, ranging from clothing and personal items to pieces of buildings and vehicles, were taken to a vacant hangar at JFK International Airport. Hangar 17 became a staging area for some of the most heart-wrenching and iconic pieces found at the site and is still housing artifacts today. Some of these artifacts, not selected for use in the Memorial Museum, were released to outside agencies to create other memorials. It was in late spring of 2009 when I first read an article in a firefighting magazine that talked about the Port Authority releasing pieces of steel recovered at Ground Zero for use in memorials around the country. Shortly after reading the article, I began to realistically look into the possibility of getting a piece of this history in Sun Prairie. I began making phone calls and sending emails, and once I had enough information, I approached the fire department and got approval to proceed with the process. In September of 2009, our request paperwork was filled out and mailed to New York, headed for the desk of Mr. Christopher Ward, Director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Late that next spring, a letter arrived stating that our request had been approved and our paperwork would be forwarded to their curator of artifacts, and they would contact us again once a piece matching our request was selected. Several months passed, and in the fall of 2010, we received a letter stating a piece that matched our needs had been selected and that the paperwork to transfer ownership would be sent to us. Our piece was identified as a section of steel beam from roughly the 40th floor of World Trade Center 2, or the South Tower. This paperwork that they mailed us was again filled out and sent back to them in February of this year, and we received our final notification that our piece was ready for pickup. At this point, we needed to either have the steel shipped or travel and pick it up ourselves. The easy solution would have been to mail it or ship it with a private company. All companies we looked into had a max shipping weight of 300 pounds, after which point it was considered bulk freight and the prices jumped significantly. Conveniently, our piece weighs 302 pounds. The insurance requirements needed in order to pick the steel up were very high. We became unsure whether or not we'd be able to complete this project, much less in time for the 10th anniversary. For months, we attempted to find a way to transport this piece of history to its new home. It was in May of this year that we found out the Marshfield Fire Department was also receiving a piece of steel, and that Rail Transport, based in Marshfield, Wisconsin, had agreed to ship their piece at no charge. We contacted Rail, and they graciously agreed while they were there to pick up ours and transport it back to us as well. I'd like to pause for a moment and thank, I know we have a member of Rail shipping somewhere in the crowd here. If you could stand and be recognized, please. Within a week, our piece of steel was on a truck and headed for Sun Prairie. It arrived in Sun Prairie on Tuesday, May 20th, and we quickly began making preparations for the memorial you will see shortly. For the month of July and into August, we placed it on temporary display on this steel cart at the public library. The steel cart was donated by Benda Welding and Fabrication and was displayed under an acrylic cover donated by AcriFab Incorporated of Sun Prairie. Gebhardt Custom Woodworking, we also need to thank. They donated their services to build a beautiful wood cabinet for the permanent display, which you'll see inside. You'll also notice a beautiful one-of-a-kind painting donated by local artist and one of our police officers, Ryan Cox. This memorial was started with the intent of being a place for all of us in the community to come and to teach future generations about September 11th, 2001, and for those of us who will never forget, to come and reflect. I hope as you walk through and see what we've done, that this intention is clear. With that, I'd like to thank you all for coming and turn it back over to Father Mike. Thank you, and never forget.